Okay, so I'm going to introduce our discussion of Castle of Otranto on Thursday afternoon with a few little short videos here just to kind of give you the overview of some of our main elements. So I'm going to start by introducing our main man, Horace Walpole. So Walpole is obviously going to be the subject of your first essay, nice short little essay. He is one of the founders of Gothic literature in a very specific, very interesting way we shall talk more about. And of course, he lived at Strawberry Hill. He built Strawberry Hill. So let's get our dates in order. 1717 to 1797 are his dates. So he's one of the earliest people that we're looking at on this module. It is very useful to see Walpole as a member of the elite, as someone who is right up there at the very, very top, but someone who possibly doesn't entirely fit in. He is the son of Sir Robert Walpole, the first British Prime Minister. Okay, it wasn't quite the title, wasn't quite British Prime Minister back then, but essentially Walpole is often considered the first Prime Minister. So talk about kind of having difficult parents to live up to. Your dad's the Prime Minister. And I think Robert Walpole is very establishment. He's very kind of entrenched with the structures of power and wealth and essentially maintaining them. Young Walpole, Horace Walpole, is given every possible luxury. He studies at Eton's, King's College, Cambridge. He has a great amount of wealth. Okay, things should be working right for them. He's a man of letters. He is a Whig politician in his own right. But I think one thing that we see in Walpole, in his letters, I mean, just so many incredible correspondences from Walpole. But one thing we see from his letters, and I think from his fiction as well, is the difficulty of being the son of the great man. The difficulty of having all of that expectation and feeling that you aren't able to fulfill it. That becomes especially fascinating when we think about, when we look at the characters in Otranto, we look at how they relate to each other, how the parents relate to the children, and the children look back at their parents. Walpole is almost certainly gay. This is something that has been, widely researched, widely debated. There's various kind of bits of evidence of saying, exactly how aware he was of his homosexuality, exactly how active he was. This is not really known because it simply wasn't a publicly done thing. However, everybody kind of talked about Walpole in the terms of his femininity, and I have a couple of quotes here, which I'm just going to switch on here. Oh, can I still? There we are, going too far. So there is a lot to suggest that Walpole was in love with, possibly having a relationship with his cousin Conway. I mean, cousins today are fairly kind of horrific no-goes, but back then people were regularly marrying their cousins. It seems a fairly kind of positive, keep it in the family kind of thing. So that element isn't particularly scandalous. What is particularly scandalous is that they're both men. Oh my goodness. Shock horror. I know, contain yourselves. But in the 1700s, it's it is a bit shocking. So here is an interesting description from William Guthrie. Okay, the context to this is that Walpole wrote a pamphlet defending the reputation of Conway, saying, what a kind of brilliant person he was, and that he definitely wasn't up to anything mischievous. And Guthrie replies with this little depiction, this little character sketch of Walpole. Walpole is by nature so malish, by disposition so female, so haltingly between the two, that it would very much puzzle a common observer to assign him his true sex. The author defends Mr. Conway in terms so personal, one would suppose it to have come from a female quiver. So two things here. One is that he's kind of, Guthrie is trying to bring Walpole down by stating that he is kind of androgynous in some ways. Like, he is not absolutely female, but he is female and male, somewhere between the two, an interesting blending of genders. And then in his writing style, the second thing is the writing style. The author defends Mr. Conway in terms of personal, one would suppose to have come from a female quiver. He's actively saying that Walpole's writing style is a female one. One would expect it to have come from a female quiver. So if we think of like the quiver is like in archery where the arrows are kept, it's the quiver, which it's one that's quite often used in the 18th century, this notion of kind of writing coming from a quiver. But that the key thing here is the gender, that this is being attributed as a kind of female writing style. Now, to slightly back the notion of Walpole and Conway being in a romantic relationship, or at least having romantic feelings, we do have this lovely line in a letter from Walpole to Conway. I have nothing better to say that I am in love with you and have been these past 20 years. Again, exactly how much that is a platonic love or how much a romantic love is difficult to know. So in a way, it absolutely doesn't matter what Walpole's sexuality is. And in a way, I suppose it is potentially very informative in that we can look at Gothic as a place for outsiders. Gothic is so often a genre where people go to kind of express the things that perhaps aren't being done in polite society, and they're kind of playing with them in a, oh, it's so horrific kind of way, but also expressing things at the same time. Gothic is a place where one can be a little bit taboo, and kind of experimental, and the customs of the genre allow that, because there is an implicit condemnation, and usually everything goes back to normal. Everybody kind of marries who they should marry, the bad people die, everything is sort of left fairly in line with a more conservative mindset. But the fact that we've had the transgression, it is there in our minds, and it's giving us that opportunity to explore. So I think that is a particularly interesting place to come from in terms of Walpole. Two little facts here: bought Strawberry Hill in 1747 and published Otranto in 1764. Okay, I'm going to take a quick pause. I'm going to come on to the details on Otranto and Strawberry Hill in separate videos to make everything a little bit clearer for you guys. Okay, you can stop the video now. It's just going to take me 10 minutes to, find how to stop recording.